All right, guys. Episode 22, Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay.
I am Shane.
I am Scott. Let's go.
All right. So, unfortunately or fortunately, we're talking about Derrick Henry today. Now, he obviously was a player on a bunch of fantasy teams who was probably helping you win, right? So you were a contending team, but now what do? He's out for the season. Scott, what's the game plan? How do we pivot?
Well, if anyone's noticed or follow me on Twitter, I've changed my Twitter handle to Dynasty Leverage, hashtag Dynasty Leverage. This is the best leverage opportunity of the season in Dynasty, Derrick Henry. He's basically on a team most likely that's in the top 3 in your league, I would guess. Almost every team I checked today, it's like 7-0, 6-1, 5-2. Like every Derrick Henry team is smashing thus far. And he's one of the reasons why, averaging over 26 points a game. Historically, that is RB1 production, which is like 50% above replacement, above like the RB3 and beyond. So, I mean, a league winner. Now he's done. Likely done for the fantasy season. He's going to be 28. He was on pace to have 500 touches. He's had over 1,500 touches in his career. All the red flags were there. We ignored it. Like Shane said in a chat earlier, he was starting to think he's invincible. Boom, the injury happened. The injury that we thought would never happen. It's happened to every other running back, but now it happened to Derrick Henry. I'm just playing both sides. It's all about the leverage. I'll buy Derrick Henry on teams where I can plan to go into next year, especially if I have maybe an extra 2023 first. I'm going into next year I'll build my team around one running back, and I'll hope that I get one more smash year from Derrick Henry. So I'll buy in that regard. But I'd also sell. I mean, if you're literally going to give me any other like top 15 running back, I'm out. I'll take the production and worry about it later. So I think you can go both ways, but I'd prefer the buy. I mean, I'd prefer buying Henry and a 2023 first. I'll give you any running back in the league other than Taylor, Swift, and probably McCaffrey and Najee. That's it. Anybody else, you give me a 2023 first and Henry, I'll eat it. Mixon, Aaron Jones, Eckler, any of those guys. I'll just eat the price, worry about the rest of the running back production later.
I like it. Shane, what about you?
I don't know that I could say it better than Scott. I'm not giving up any first for Henry, though. The first is my line of demarcation. You're not getting it. I'll give you Miles Sanders if you want him. I'll give you J.K. Dobbins from me, Travis Etienne, and Cam Akers. I'll give you any of those if you want to trade injury for injury, because those guys are younger at least, right? So you get an age discount with those guys, and I'm taking the old guy, taking on Henry.
So let me ask you this, Scott. What would need to be put on top of Fournette for you to move Henry? So you're a contender. You need a running back who's scoring points. Fournette's obviously doing that. You trade Henry for Fournette, and what would you require on top of Fournette?
That's tough. I mean, I'd probably want at least a second, maybe more. That's the problem is I don't want to. I mean, most of my teams are already slim at running back because I've pared them down. We've had these discussions how many times on this show. Like if I'm sitting on these running backs, I am scared to death every week they make it through. I'm looking for these leverage deals where I can get 2 pieces for 1 and just buy that running back production for cheaper. So, I mean, that's one where I don't think I want to move my Henry shares. I want to keep them for next year because maybe he has one more year in him. You know what I mean? I don't want to trade for a guy like Fournette because I mean Fournette could be Derrick Henry next week. So that's just a tough way to go about it. I actually think the savvy move is what I said before. If I'm 7-0 and you're 7-0 and you just lost Henry, I will trade you my Zeke if you give me Henry in a 2023 first. I'll bite the bullet that I can replace the running back production cheaper. And then next year I could smash you because I still have a good enough team that can maybe beat you. I think that's the move I'm trying to make. I'm trying to really take advantage of the fact that you're now crippled because you don't have him.
Look, I just traded for Derrick Henry in a league last week, right? And I gave up Jalen Waddle and Javonte Williams in a couple seconds. And I was real hesitant on doing it only because of how much capital it was. But I said, hey, Derrick Henry can't die, Derrick Henry can't get injured. Nothing can happen to Derrick Henry now because he's immortal. And I was wrong. So I don't want to make any trade where I'm giving up a first plus something for another running back. Never again in my lifetime. I think I'm just going to buy a bunch of running back production cheap as I can.
So give me a few names of wide receivers that you would trade Henry for straight up. You're trading away Henry. What wide receivers straight up would you accept?
I would take Jalen Waddle. No, I wouldn't. I might. I probably would take Jalen Waddle plus. I'd ask for a little plus, but Jalen Waddle, right around that range.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think of names specifically because I do think it really depends on how you've built your team. But if it's one where I have an extra Rondale Moore or an extra Jalen Waddle or something like that, again, it's just trying to use the leverage to try to get a little bit more than that back. You know, I want to have Derrick Henry on more teams than I have right now for next year. I'm fine if I go into next year buying at this price where it's going to drop in the next month. I'm fine buying at this price saying he is going to be done for on my roster. He might give me one more year, but that might be worth it if you get anything close to what he was giving you this year as like your anchor for 2022.